Good evening, everyone, and welcome to On the Wrong Lead presents Saratoga Daily. I'm Mark, and the one and only Cherry Drank is on with me, talking a little bit of Saratoga for a Wednesday card.
Wait a
Um,
second. Hold on a second. I thought this was Del Mar Daily because I saw you playing Del Mar Monday and clearing a couple nice doubles there on Monday. So I know you complain about California racing, but I think you maybe you might take a look a little bit closer.
yeah, I've always liked Del Mar. Del Mar is a good track. It's more competitive fields, a little bigger field size, and it seems like sort of like a double player's paradise. The big fat pools and really competitive fields. It's not a bad track to play. I do like a little Del Mar, especially when it's on a Monday.
Yep, that really helps because I know everyone's missing their Saratoga Mondays.
Yeah, 2 years now without Saratoga Mondays. I mean, how are we gonna survive? But no, we have a Saratoga Wednesday here. First race is a jumps race, but I guess before we get into the card here, Josh, what have you been seeing on the Saratoga meet? Anything you've been sort of targeting in on, or things you've been trying to approach?
So I think kind of what you said about Del Mar a little bit, holds for Saratoga. I've seen so far a lot of value in the double pool. Um, I think I mean there's been a couple of days where I've missed on like all but two races, but I connect a double on that and turn a nice little profit for the day. So I definitely I haven't been playing. I don't think I've played any pick fours or pick fives this year. I've mostly been playing the pick three and doubles, and I've seen some pretty good payouts even with some shorter prices. Yeah, that's kind of where my focus has been. Um, I haven't had a great meet, but at the same time, I haven't lost my shirt. So um, it's been challenging. But the weather's held, which has been nice compared to last year. And I guess I kind of got an example pulled up already of the kind of plays I've been playing here. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start off at the sixth race. Now I know Mark, you went ahead and you have a pick four play or pick five, or is it pick five
Pick
play?
five, yeah. I played a pick
Pick five
five,
play.
the early pick five. It's up on the blog. I'll put a link to it. I think for me, I'm an ABC kind of person, so it's easier to write those down and have them written. And I'm going to try to do that whenever we can. So
Yeah, so I'm looking at race six here, um, and this is kind of what I've been. I don't want to say that. Yeah, I guess it's kind of what I've been focusing on. If you kind of look at race six, um, the race is kind of flat. And for our newer players, if you're asking what flat means, the odds for the most part, you don't have a huge favorite, and then just like a bunch of long shots. Like the payouts are the morning line is pretty even. I think our morning line favorites 5-2, then you get 3-1, you got some 7-2s, 9-2. So you got a pretty even distribution of decent chance horses to win here. When I see this, I tend to try and find the horse I like the best out of those even prices, and I single it. I hammer it. Um, if you look at any of the plays I posted, like in Churchill, there was like a pick five I hit where I singled this like 5 or 6 to 1 horse in the first leg. And, I ended up by singling that horse and hitting on that horse, I saved myself, I don't know, something like 45 to $60, depending on how many combinations I would have added of, quote unquote logical horses. And I think I ended up playing like a $12 or $24 ticket and hitting for a couple hundred. So um, I'm looking to do something similar here. I haven't really looked around these races yet. But I really like the 5 horse here, American Power. I think that this is going to be the horse that I'm going to key my entire day around. Um, I think that this horse here is the most likely winner in this race. You're getting 3-1 on the morning line. Looks like he's second choice. But like I said, there's a couple other horses around here. I don't think this horse is going to get much shorter than 3-1. So I don't think it's not like you're going to single an odds-on horse here. So I think you're going to see a little bit more value if you can get through this race only using one horse. I think you might have two horses here. I think you got the 5 and the 6 as your A horses in
Yeah.
this race. Yeah, and I think I'm going to try and get by just with the 5. Linda's been red hot. Has you don't want to see any yelling at the Thanksgiving table here with Jose Ortiz aboard. So I really like this horse. I think it's going to be your most likely winner. And I'm going to key mostly around it. The 6 does interest me a lot, because you didn't, uh, if this horse wasn't off for 18 months, uh, I think that this horse is huge. But coming off that long layoff, I think that the 5 American Power is just going to be in better form here. But if the 6 won, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the 6 takes a lot more money though too. But
Yeah, I would agree
um,
with you. I think the 6 probably takes a ton more money. It's one of those interesting. I always love owner trainer horses. It's Todd Fletcher trained, and it's owned by Todd and his son. Jake and Todd Fletcher co-own this horse. So you almost wonder, okay, is this sort of a very well-meant horse that to get dad in the winner's circle with his son in a photo kind of a thing at Saratoga? But also one thing that's a little scary for this horse is this is the first time this horse has been exposed, been in for a tag, and a lot of times first time in for a tag off from a really long layoff. That's a sort of we want to get rid of this horse. We want to move this one along. So your 5 has been in at this level before, and is probably and has done really well at this level, and Jose decides to go there. And also your 5 is 2 for 2 across the track, and I think you could get better than 3-1 honestly on American Power. These races are interesting. There's I think about 6 betting interests that are less than 10-1 in here, and when you get a race like that, a lot of times odds get a little wonky. People will sort of levitate towards one horse, and you'll see things drift up, and you'll be like, why is this horse drifting? I think this is the second or third best horse, but I'm getting a really nice price on it. Nothing wrong with taking a stab in those kind of spots. And I also like your structure here. A big flat race, and you're being contrarian, a little game theory, and that's a good way to be.
yeah, I mean, the only other race in here, in this sequence that I kind of like a horse that might be um, might be a little bit more like middle priced. I kind of like this one in race 9. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this name.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I might as well. Wissahickon. I don't even know if that's right. But it's first time starter here in the U.S. for Jonathan Thomas, which is a plus move for him. Jonathan Thomas doesn't race a ton of horses, but pretty much all the horses that he races are live. You get JJ coming aboard here. So you got to think that this horse is pretty live. And then if you look back at the works are looking pretty good. The last work, wasn't great, but at the same time, it could have just been a maintenance type move, especially because we're 9 days out from a race. So I'm not going to hold that last work against, especially because the horse was working really well. And it's actually another key to that sixth race, that 6 horse that you like. Even though this horse has been on a long layoff, the works have been pretty steady. The works have been good. So this horse might fire first time out on this long layup as well. So that's something to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, I like Wissahickon, or Wissahickon, I think is how you say it. Quite a lot
Sure.
here. Two back got beat by Matterhorn, who's actually a pretty darn legitimate horse now. Matterhorn's gotten much better with age. Back in 2018, Communique was in the running lines. We're talking some legitimate world class horses that he's been facing. Works for this came back pretty good. B plus work on that 2 back work that was recorded, so that's always a nice sign to see. And also, if you're not familiar with UK racing, this is out of the John Gosden barn. That's like saying a horse was transferred out of the Chad Brown barn or the Todd Fletcher barn. He's about as good as European. He's one of the top 5 or 6 European trainers. So and it doesn't look like something went wrong. This is an Augustin stabled horse. They might have just decided they could come over and steal some of these big American purses in some races like this, and that kind of beat up on our turf horses, which are a little more suspect. So I like this here. And I think for me the one is definitely my top pick in here. At not a terrible 7-2 morning line. I will say though, and Caleb and I were talking about this earlier, This race has one of the weirdest set of conditions I have ever seen carded, specifically at Saratoga. It's an optional 150 for 4-year-olds and upwards, which have, and there's about 12 different lines. There's one line in there though that has never, where is it? I have to kind of find it here. Yeah, non-winners of 2 races other than claiming or starters at a mile or over in 2020 are allowed. That's not what I was looking for. Where is the other one?
Are you talking about the
Here we go.
horses?
Yeah,
Go
here
ahead.
we go. Which have never won 5 races or which have not won 60,000 at a mile or over since August of 2019. That is a bizarre line, and it sort of does line up that maybe somebody was trying to get therapist a real live a live race, because he happens to have won the elusive quality back in April of 2019, but it was at 7 furlongs, so it opts him out of that 1 mile clause. It sort of makes you scratch your head. I know Linda Rice was accused of doing some things like this. You kind of wonder, that's a weird way to card a race, and I wonder if Therapist is super, super live here because of it.
Look at those were gifts. Okay, those were gifts. They were Christmas gifts. And if people just gave her a little bit extra information, that's not her fault.
Yeah, I mean, what goes around comes around, right?
Yeah, So it's kind of interesting. It's tough because those are kind of my two strongest opinions, and they're 4 races apart. I don't think I'm looking at the wagering menu. I guess I could try and play the pick five here, but I'm not really. I don't know. I mean, I could try and probably pay a pick five, and then I would have actually probably 3 singles in this sequence. I would have some extra money if I wanted to maybe add an extra horse in this race, like maybe like you said, a therapist or maybe even like a Gidu, getting loose on a lead with Sayas out there. But I think there's the 6 here, Blackjack Davy, in this allowance race at race 8, looks to be pretty strong. I always like these lightly raced horses. I know Caleb is like, oh, maiden winner going against maiden winner going against winners for the first time. If a maiden horse wins in his their first or second start, and then goes into an allowance race against a bunch of horses that are like 1 for 9, 1 for 10, 4 for 26, like, okay, whatever, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna take the horse that's shown improvement, and that is probably got more room to grow than these other horses that kind of remained stagnant. So I really like the 6 Blackjack Davy. I think the workout reports also really like the 6 in that race. So I could definitely see myself maybe trying to single that horse as well, get really skinny in those 3 legs, and maybe try to do something stupid in that like late last race turf sprint and just hit like the all button or something.
Yeah, I will say in your 8th race here, I like a horse, and I actually really love a price in here. The horse that really kind of, I mean, Blackjack Davy is super logical. The works are there, everything else. It's a horse you have to include in some way, shape, or form. The horse that really jumped off the pages for me was Dancers for Token, the 7. Junior Alvarado's up for Robbie Davis. Again, not super high percentage connections all the way around, but if you're an optics person, this 7 jumps off the page at you on optics. Horse has a ton of closing speed, gigantic square above the horizontal line, and it's the, I think, only horse. Let me hop over to optics here. I think it's the only horse. It's the only, you have the 5, which is going to be forwardly placed, but what was working in dirt routes, and that has been working sort of the first couple weeks of the meet, is these horses that are a little more off the pace. And obviously the 2 and the 5 are going to be out pressing the pace a little more. This 7 should be able to sit a trip and has the ability to come home late. You're getting kind of paid to take a stab here. I don't think you'll get 10 to 1. I think there's enough people looking at optics that horse is probably going to take some money. But I actually wanted to get a little bit cute and sort of build some daily doubles and pick threes kind of into the 7, out of the 7, and maybe pick threes, through the 7. I think the 7th and ninth races both have some kind of calamity potential, races that I want to be a little bit more deep in, and I think I want to kind of build around this 7, and hopefully it doesn't don't shoot myself in the foot over doing it.
Yeah, I've never heard you say getting kind of cute and never come back to bite you.
Yeah, those things never come around to bite me. But no, I think some of these late races are really, really interesting, and I think you sort of hopped right into your plays. I was just say a couple things that I've been noticing this meet is, I mean, obviously the Twitter sphere, whether it be DRF, whether it be any of the sort of media around horse racing has been talking about, Todd Fletcher's really hot right now, and Mike Maker's really hot, and Christophe Clement's really hot. I think when you say that, you have to be a little bit careful because they all have a couple of runners in here. First thing, Chad Brown is 0 for his last 19. I don't expect that to stand. I don't expect that to be a thing, even though he was getting a little bit of flack on the Twitter horse racing world for it. But other things to note is that when we start talking about somebody like a Mike Maker or a Christophe Clement being hot, both of those two trainers are, in the past couple years, have been very hot the first 2 or 3 weeks of the Saratoga meet. And if you look specifically at the types of races they're winning, Mike Maker is winning a lot of turf routes that are specifically claiming races and allowance races. He does have some like at Hot Brown and Stakes, but besides that, he's been really cleaning up on these kind of claiming and lower end allowance races. Nothing wrong with that, and there are wins, but I mean, I would move his horses up in those situations, not all of his horses up. And the reason that those horses I think are running well, there was a bunch of scuttlebutt early in the spring that Kentucky trainers were saying that they found Naira at certain levels to be easier than Kentucky races. So, say a claiming 40, they found those to be easier races in Naira than they were in Kentucky. So there was a lot of talk from those guys that they were going to ship horses to Naira and try to take advantage of that throughout the Belmont and Saratoga meets. I think you're seeing a lot of that right now, where Maker just has these claiming 40 level horses that may just be a little better than the claiming 40s that they're running against in Naira. And I think in the same regard, Christophe Clement points all of his young maidens for the beginning part of the Saratoga meet. So he always gets off to a great start. I think the maiden special weight races are a little easier in the beginning of the Saratoga meet than they are going to be in the sort of middle of the meet around, the Travers and Whitney cards. So I think you're seeing Christophe Clement being smart about how he spots his maidens and cleaning up sort of early in the meet.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And you mentioned Mike Maker winning turf routes. I mean, that's like his thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, like if he happens to pick up 2 or 3 turf route wins at the beginning of Saratoga, like, yeah, like that's where you expect him to win. Like, he enters horses on all surfaces, all conditions. But like if all of a sudden you see Mike Maker wins like 4, turf routes in a week or two, like, okay, that's like those are Maker horses. That's what Maker does. He claims horses, and that he sees that are running in the wrong type of races, and he enters them into turf routes. I mean, that's just what he does.
That's his bread and butter. That's how he makes his money.
So I mean, like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with like Wesley Ward, right? Outside of his like 2-year-olds in Kentucky, right? If you see like Ward win like 2 races in a week and they're both turf sprints, like, he's not getting hot. Like, those are Ward horses. Like, that's what he does. He does turf sprints. Same thing. Like, you see him enter turf routers, you see him enter dirt routers, dirt everything. So like it's important to kind of pay attention to that. And like that's part, like a meet like Saratoga is interesting because you get that's probably Saratoga's probably the biggest conglomeration of different trainers. I think you have Saratoga, and then probably second would be like Gulfstream Championship meet. Off the top of my head,
I would agree. Yeah.
You get Gulfstream Championship meet. You get New York trainers. You get the Gulfstream trainers. You get Kentucky trainers, and you get the same thing here in at Saratoga. So like sometimes it is hard. I remember last year Maker got a little hot, and you're like, oh, Mike Maker never wins in Naira, and it's like, well, if you watch what Mike Maker does at Gulfstream and in Kentucky, like the guy wins a lot actually. So, it's just important to know, especially in these bigger meets. Um, I mean, honestly, like ask people because you'll see, like a guy like Insomniac, for example, knows Kentucky and knows um, Louisiana. So all of a sudden, you'll see some random like Kentucky trainer or Kentucky horse. Ask a guy like him or like Anonymous, and I'm naming Discord people, but like if you don't know, if you see a trainer, like I know you ask questions all the time. I see guys like Tom, 643. He asks questions all the time. Caleb asks questions. Like these are guys who are sharp horse players. These are guys who like are very good. Like on our videos we have a nice spread of knowledge where like I'm still like at the beginning of my horse playing career. You got like Caleb and Chase who are kind of bridge the middle, and then you got you, Mark, who's been playing for years. But the one thing I've always noticed is all of us ask questions, and all of us sometimes ask the same question, and that's like the important thing is like never think that like everything, because all of a sudden you see Mike Maker enter a horse in a turf route, and he claimed some turf sprinter from Kentucky, and he's at turf routing in Saratoga, and you're like, this horse has got no shot. It's like, that's just what he does. So
Yeah, no, completely agree. Absolutely, completely agree. You went to exactly where I was going with that. Is that that's what Mike Maker does. His barn's hot right now, doing that, and I would expect you're going to see less value as the meet goes on in those types of horses. The one that was been really impressive to me is Todd Fletcher, who Todd Fletcher for the past 4 or 5 years has not had a good once 4 or 5, 2 or 3 years has not had a great Saratoga meet, and all of a sudden Todd Fletcher's winning sprints and he's winning routes and he's winning on dirt and he's winning on turf, and all of a sudden you just have to take notice of any Todd Fletcher horse. So there are these certain things where trainers are pointing their barns for things. I wonder if Todd maybe was pointing his barn a little more for Saratoga this year than he had in previous years, or there's some other reasons I have, which are a lot of me inventing reasons in the background that may be there or may not be. But yeah, you at least take note and don't discard those types of horses, from trainers who do well with that certain type.
yeah, and I guess I know I think I did a podcast on this really shortly, talking about some books that I've read. If you haven't, and I don't think I have it handy, I'm looking, I don't see it. Betting with an Edge. It's a book by Mike Maloney. He talks a little bit about the stuff that Mark and I were just talking about, and he just starts like naming off these examples. Like, man, I forgot. I think he was talking about like homebred horses. Like he was talking
Okay.
about like um, Istan, right? Istan is this sire who I forgot who owned him, but he was a relatively new sire, and like all of his first time starters were like super well placed because the breeder was like super selective on who he sold to, and like where they were going to spot the horse. It's stuff like that. It's stuff like Mike Maker, at least the past 2 years, has gotten very hot at the beginning of these Saratoga meets and has faded. He's just pointing his horses back in different spots. I mean, one of the funny things is, I'm relatively new to horse playing. I think it's been about 2 full years or so, and you know, everyone always talked about how great of a trainer Todd Fletcher was. It's like, dude, like if nobody told me that this guy knew how to train a horse, like I'd be like, what, Todd Fletcher? He's like what, like a 14% guy? Like he's just like an average guy, right? So it's just it's kind of funny. Um, uh, and that's, like I said, that's part of the reason why you have to go outside of what and what you just see on the past performance, and getting that local knowledge is super super helpful, especially in these boutique meets.
Yeah, man. No, completely agree. Completely agree. I mean, it's horrible because I remember growing up with, early 2000s when, Todd Fletcher was a 35% trainer and he was literally winning. He had some sort of stat one year with his maidens at Saratoga won like half the maiden races or something, or like, I think it was maiden special weights. He won like half of the races. It was a
Hmm.
crazy stat. And it was, before the rise of Chad Brown. And yeah, you get all those sort of crazy things. So, yeah, I think that's good. Unless you had anything else you wanted to talk about, any specific races or anything, Josh?
No, like I said, most of my play is going to be around that six. In the sorry, I was looking at Colonial. The six in the sixth race there. That Linda, or sorry, the five in the sixth race. Jose Ortiz and Linda Rice, American Power. So I'm probably going to try and get some doubles in and out of this horse. And if I do play the pick five, I'll be singling that horse there.
Yeah, I'll post up. I'll put a link to our or my blog post that has the early pick five. And I would also say, if you're just a fan of horse racing in general, watch this ninth race tomorrow because that's basically a G3 masquerading as an optional claiming race. That race is stupidly stacked. There's a lot of those horses that you will see down the road in other stakes races or in black type races and things. And a lot of times you can watch these races, see how they compare to some of these competitors. Where do these horses go from here, and who's the class of the field? So, until next time, we thank you for stopping in and joining. If you like this content, like and or subscribe, and good luck at the races.